All right, so today I'm sitting here with the wonderful Mr. Noah Bush, and he is going to be giving you some ideas on how to complete the water investigation. So go ahead and take it away, my friend.
All right, great. I'm Noah Bush. I teach biology at Manhattan High School and really got involved in doing the investigations from Kansas Green Schools 3 or 4 years ago. And it became kind of not only something we did here at our school, but it became kind of mainstream throughout all our schools and our districts, and kind of exciting because all of our buildings were doing different investigations. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the water investigation. This particular investigation kind of starts out where students just learn about where their water comes from. And we start talking about watersheds and trying to kind of define that. And we start trying to look at, our watershed and what that is. And then from kind of learning about watersheds and the watershed that we live in, then we moved into where our water comes from. And so our water here in this area comes from groundwater. And so we talked about, what groundwater is. And then coupled with that, we took a trip and went to our water treatment facility here in Manhattan, and our students got to see, the water comes up from the ground, but it doesn't go straight into our faucets. There's actually things that they do to it, that they add to it to make sure that it's safe. Our students are really interested in just how important that is and how important it is that we protect that, because clean water is something that we kind of take for granted. And I think that it gave an opportunity for my students to see that maybe they shouldn't. And then it's a nice way to kind of talk about places like Flint, Michigan, and other places in the world where clean water is not guaranteed. And so that was a really cool experience for my students. And then from there we get into kind of the part about, where does our water go? And so, water comes into our houses, but it also leaves our houses. It comes into our buildings, leaves our buildings. And so we had an opportunity then to visit our sewage treatment facility in our community. And that was probably, of all the experiences, the most eye-opening, the grossest, but then also the coolest, and something my students really remember is seeing, sewage water come into the plant and then going and seeing what's coming out of that plant. And so that was really cool. And there actually is a spot where there is a pipe that goes right into the river from our community. And so all of the sewage, including the wastewater, the stormwater runoff, goes through that facility. And so just talking about how that water that goes back into the river is going to be pretty clean. And so that was kind of a cool process as well. We then get into the part about how we use water here at our school. And so just beginning to let students kind of start to explore and travel around and go count toilets and sinks and go step outside and walk around and look for water hydrants and faucets, and start to count up the number of places in which water is actually coming out into the open. And then the cool part there is then starting to look for places where maybe we're not doing a very good job with conservation of water. So is there a leaky faucet? Is there a water hydrant that maybe is, when you push the button, paying attention to how much water is coming out? Or there's some water fountains that are a little different from others. Which classrooms have sinks in them, which ones don't. I teach in a science classroom, so I have 6 or 7 sinks. So there's a lot of opportunities for, a water drip to occur, and I don't catch it. They get to kind of go into the bathrooms and check out and see what's going on there, which is kind of cool. Just counting the numbers of toilets and then figuring out how much water gets flushed per toilet, and then you can determine, okay, so you have this many toilets, this many gallons. Start to have the students start thinking about, how many times do you think one toilet gets flushed in a day? And then how many students do we have in this building? And then next thing you know, your numbers really start climbing pretty high, and it's pretty amazing when you get that at the end for kids be like, whoa, we use a lot of water in one day. And we're not even taking showers or washing dishes really like we might at home. So that's kind of cool to get to kind of play with that. So they do their investigations and they actually collect real data by collecting those numbers and doing a little bit of math. We also start to look at our school grounds a little bit. Our school does not have a sprinkler system, but we do have some ground where there's some sports and activities being played, and they do drag hoses out and they do water those, especially for some of those early fall sports right at the beginning of the school year. They're trying to keep that grass kind of growing, and so just how long does that run, and how often are they doing it, and how much water is coming out, which is kind of cool. We also get an opportunity to take a look at the school's water bill. Our district has 13 or 14 buildings in it. That includes elementary, middle, and high schools. And when you get the district's water bill, at least for us, it's always pretty shocking to take a look at, just how much money we spend on water. Once again, something we take for granted. And a lot of our students, they don't see their water bill at home. They just simply turn on the faucet and water's there. So having a moment for them to kind of take somebody else's aspect on that and start to kind of think about, wow, not only is water not free, but that we also use more than maybe we should. So we also did a really cool kind of part where we start to kind of think about what are some things we can maybe begin doing to help our school in terms of conservation. There is a home connection part where we have the students go home and they kind of collect some data at home about how water usage is occurring at home, and starting to think about things like that. And then ultimately, the fun part is taking all this data and then sitting down is like, well, what can we do about it? I think, once again, living in the part of the world that we do, water conservation is something that, it's hard for our students to see or to feel. If you live out in western Kansas and your parents are farmers and you irrigate crops, then you would have some understanding of water conservation and maybe what that takes, and in order to be sustainable and continue to grow crops 40, 50 years down the road. But here around this area, our kids don't really know. They see these wonderful green lawns and people turn their sprinklers on, and so just talking like, okay, here at school, what could we begin to do different? And so little things like, putting little notes around by the sinks in the bathrooms, like, hey, make sure you turn the handles off, and things like that. Maybe beginning to look at the, if there is a sprinkler system of some kind, how often we're doing it, do we need to do it as much? And those things, the action planning part is really the important part, where we can begin to kind of teach and train our students to think with a conservationist's mind and start thinking about sustainability and start thinking about their own futures. I think is the real goal for any of these investigations, is just to have students think about stewardship, and that we only have one planet to live on, and there's only so much water, and we need to take care of both of those. And so, my kids really enjoyed it. So I hope that you guys do too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Was there anything that you needed to prepare for in advance, or?
Yeah. So, getting a hold of the right person in your district and getting a hold of the water bill. Luckily enough, I had gotten a water report from our water treatment facility. Oh, there you go. Getting into school. And so I was able to get the information about what is actually found in our drinking water, and then also kind of what they put into our drinking water. And so that was some data that I needed to get kind of ahead of time. So, but actually the group of students I was working with was a little older, so I actually made them call the water treatment facility, and they actually mailed them one of those brochures. So little things like that, letting the students take ownership in the research is kind of important. Like, teaching kids to think like scientists, like I need some data. How do I get the data? So little things like that is kind of cool. We did, as the opportunities to go to the water treatment plant and the sewage treatment plant, I did not take a field trip per se with my students. It was opportunities that we have an organization or a group within our district of just teachers that form little green teams and think about how we can teach kids to take care of the environment. And we provided this kind of experience, and students could go if they wanted to. And so just a handful of students going though and coming back and telling the other kids about what the stuff coming into the sewage treatment facility is like was pretty eye-opening for them, and then even the people they talked to.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Sure.